Hello, friends. Welcome once again to the Perfect Bound Podcast. This is a podcast all about anything and everything comic books and comics related, brought to you by the Panel Jumper and Comic Extension. My name is Ben. With me, as always, is Cole Hornaday.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, Cole. Chris Casso. Hey, Ben. Hey, Chris. And finally, Nicole Lamb.
Oh, hi there.
Hi. How's everybody doing?
It's the punchy episode.
It's the punchy hour.
Indeed.
Welcome to the hour of the punch.
Well, we're here. We're sitting in front of a different array of cameras again. By cameras, I mean certain various flavors of iPhones and GoPros. And you, too, can see what we look like if you tune into our YouTube channel. And just look for the Panel Jumper on YouTube and follow the Perfect Bound Podcast link, because they will be posted there. But yeah, how was everybody's summer? Summer seems to be grinding to a halt here in the Northwest.
You want a full meal deal assessment, or just like a single word?
What you got?
Neither, man. I'm swinging in the wind here.
Well, because one of the things that you were able to do during the summertime, if you're lucky, is you take a break, you relax, you figure out what to do with your time. Chris is shaking his head.
Yeah,
No,
I'm like looking
I
at
don't
you
get
going,
to take a
I'm
break.
so happy you live in that magical little wonderland, Ben
How
Lawrence.
is vacation now?
Well, the reason I bring that up is because our friends, the creators of Saga, have taken a break. They're taking a year off. We discussed this in a previous episode. And a super fan of the show, Patrick, was offered up this subject to us to discuss. What should fans of Saga pick up at their local comic book shop to help them get through the dry spell that is the Saga vacation? So what do we got? What do we want to recommend to the Saga diehards?
I want to throw a caveat out, which is like when you're comparing stuff to Saga, that's a tough act to follow. Because I thought about a lot of books that I think are worthy of reading as a supplement, but may not be on a par writing-wise or similar. And because I was thinking, like, why is Saga so exciting to me and so exciting to so many people? For me, the artwork is lovely. The characterizations are hyper-realistic, and even the characters from the top tier characters all the way down to supporting characters, even though if it's a little seal person and his walrus bipedal, his quadrupedal walrus buddy, they're believable characters and they have depth and value and magnitude. Also, Saga has so many different plots and subplots, and Vaughn presents them to you magnificently because it's easy to track them. It's like, I pick them up in the trades. I don't read them month to month, and I have yet to wish I had gone back and reread an earlier volume because I can pick up where I left off.
They're just engaging.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to establish that. For me, that's why it's a tough act to try to figure out how to supplement.
Yeah, I didn't go like 1-to-1 on it because I don't feel like that's something you do. You just read more Saga, So I'm trying to think of things that are quality. Kind of like you were saying, there's things that you should probably read that are good. They may not fit the Saga box, but they're good titles. So I know Chris has a go-to that he always offers.
Shudder is my go-to. It's if you like the sci-fi fantasy element, that mashup of Saga, then I feel Shudder also delivers on that, but takes it in a very different direction. And I absolutely love the art. It's Lila Del-Luca. Did I get that right?
Is it Del Duca?
Del Duca.
Del Luca?
I've never read it.
Loduca?
It's really interesting. It
It's-
does have a lot of mashups to it. It has action. They go to really strange places.
It gets more bizarre than Saga at times. It's my quick like elevator pitch to it is like if you had Indiana Jones and Doctor Who mushed them together and gave it a great female lead and an expansive cast of other interesting characters. So that's just one of my go-tos. It's a 5-volume set, so it's all finished. So it's one of those things that in this year of Saga waiting, you can parse that out a little bit. So yeah. And then we have a local creator book that we've been picking up from Emerald Distro, and that one is
Chimera by
yeah.
Tyler Ellis. Neither one of us have been able to read it yet.
Because we keep selling out of it.
Because we keep selling out of it, but
Well, that's a good sign.
The art does have a very reminiscent feel of Fiona Staples' art. I don't know how the story follows with it. I haven't quite heard any feedback yet, but I have seen it available through the library's digital service, Hoopla, so I might read it that way. But that could be one if you want to visually get that feel. I'm always going to push Isola because I love it. I know it's not a 1-to-1. I know but I'm not going 1-to-1 because then just draw Saga.
Because I wanted to, but I was like, Isola is a really beautiful book, but it's, we have one plot and we have flashbacks establishing who these characters are, and it's a slow build.
Yeah,
which
the
I
pacing
like.
is not Saga at
and
all.
the artwork is
It's
super gorgeous,
phenomenal.
And
Yeah, it's one that you can follow month to month, which is
Yeah.
good. It's still considered ongoing. It just rounded out issue 5, and will come back in January, so you could just start fresh in the new year with following that. And it's gorgeous. If you want something more expansive epicness, like space wise, you could do Descender. Descender just finished out. It's 6 volumes. I think the 6th volume's coming out in 2 months or something like that. So you could track on that if you wanted to do something. I don't necessarily think, again, it's like right with Saga, but I think that it's up there in popularity, and it's got beautiful artwork, and it's got an interesting story.
Any others?
It's not comparable even by genre necessarily, but I feel Wicked and Divine cross-sells fairly well to Saga readers. And part of it is just the strength of characterization, and also it's a unique art style. And if you've never read or heard of Wicked and Divine, that one follows a modern mythology. It's every 99 years, I think, a group of people are chosen to become the modern avatars of different gods from different pantheons, and they get to live that way for 2 years, and then they die horrible deaths.
Oh, jeez.
So it's happening now, and all the current incarnations are pop gods. So Beyonce is an actual goddess, and
Rihanna is,
Yeah.
and I think she's Bast, and then there's like a Jay-Z character, or
yeah.
I think I've heard of somebody else. But anyway,
is the series still going?
Yep.
still
still
going.
going. Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
haven't tracked with it the entire time. The first couple
I
volumes were
read
really
the
good,
first
though.
3 trades, and I actually lost interest in it, unfortunately.
But they use real world representations?
No, those are just my examples.
Yeah,
They're,
Oh my
they're
God.
analogs. They're
Analogs.
analogs for
Gotcha.
current pop
Gotcha.
stars.
Yeah, I forget their character names.
I'll go back and give it another chance. But as soon as I started to feel like Gaiman did this and I liked it better, I kind of like,
That's fair.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of things that Gaiman beat people to when it comes to modern mythology. So it just
And I
swallows
should
up
give
things.
I should give it a better chance than that. But I wasn't in the mood at the time, and you know me, my moods shift like the wind.
And that can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
I've found that I've not been in the mood for something and just been like,
Sure.
I can't get through this. In another week I might be so hot for it or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
I was thinking of Hickman books like East West, but of course we just learned that that's going
almost
to be
ending,
reaching a conclusion, and Black Monday Murders, which I don't know, that's on an extended hiatus too.
It just rounded out its second arc, so it's
Yeah.
on one of those breaks.
As he started to reveal the story behind the story, I was less excited about that reveal.
Oh, really? That had me.
Oh, vampires. I just ruined the story.
For East of West or for Black Monday Murders?
Black Monday.
There's no vampires in Black
Well,
Monday
yeah,
Murders.
they're eternal beings that eat each other. Yeah, it's. You didn't. Oh, really? You didn't interpret them as being vampires?
No, they're just like greedy people. Of
They're
course
supernatural.
Of course they.
There's a supernatural aspect to them. Yeah. All right. I interpreted them as being vampires.
Okay.
When I'm looking for when I'm looking to fill that void that is left by a creator, I look for other things from that creator. So, what other Brian K. Vaughan books should people read?
Paper Girl.
Paper Girls for sure. There's saga elements in
I
that.
have never read Paper Girls, but I was going to recommend Why the Last Man. I love that series. In fact, I should go back and reread it. I thought that was a fascinating series.
It's been actually forever since I read it, so I should go back, but it doesn't actually hold me as strong as Paper Girls is holding me. Cliff Chiang does the art on that, and I just really like Cliff Chiang. And I will always recommend go and reread The Pride of Baghdad. That's his very, very sad kind of version of The Lion King, where it follows a real world thing where during one of the bombings on Baghdad, a pride of lions were set loose, and this of the zoo, and this follows their day in Baghdad from their point of view, and they're talking animals. And this one, nothing good came of it, and
then We Stand on Guard is his alternate.
Oh, right.
War
right.
with
The
Canada.
Canadian invasion one. That I forgot all about that. That's really good. Yeah.
and Barrier, which was finished
right.
up recently and will never be collected again. So come over here. We got lots of single issues.
Why will it not be collected again?
Because they said it will never be collected, ever.
No particular reason for
Because they wanted to make something that comic stores would have the unique version of. So, yeah.
Interesting. What about work by Fiona Staples? Has she done properties other than Saga?
North 40 was
that's
something she did for, it wasn't Wildstorm. It may have been, or maybe it was Wildstorm and not Vertigo. And I think it's been reprinted by somebody else now, but it's a Midwestern Lovecraft story, kind of. And it's sort of a comedy. I forget who wrote it. It was fun, but it's been like 15 years since I've read it. And I can't think of anything else that she's done.
He's done like an issue or two of Archie, and that's all I
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
The other series that a lot of people, of Vaughn's, that a lot of people talk about is Ex Machina. It's one of those rare series where I loved it until the end, and now I hate it. Because I don't like how the ending was handled, but...
Was it a Deus Ex Machina?
No, but it was a blindside. I was really blindsided by how it turned out because the reveal is this protagonist you've been supporting through the whole story is not who you think they are.
It's all a dream.
No,
Oh
no,
no.
it's just, no. It's about politics, and maybe that's why I had a hard time with it. It's about the duplicity of politics, but with basically it's about a superhero becomes president of the United States. And I love that premise. I thought that was
Right.
great. It's not a bad series. It's a good series. Cole just had some personal issues.
Don't read the final issue. Apparently.
You have to read the final issue.
Did he become president at the end of the series? Because he was mayor of New York.
No, you're right. He's
Yeah,
mayor. He's running for president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got
He
it.
becomes president at the end of the series.
Okay.
Okay. Any final
Spoilers.
fill your saga hole recommendations?
Yikes.
God.
Not really.
I mean, at that point, we just sort of cater to what people would like at that
Yeah.
point.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's
Right.
a lot of solid series out there. You could pick up an Image #1 and see how it strikes you.
I start to get a range of everything else people read, and then kind of whittle it down from there.
So if you're looking for something to fill your saga hole, come into a local comic shop and talk to the fine people behind the counter, and they will know exactly what you want to read. Let's move on, everybody.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of filling your hole, Atlas Obscura had an article about the fictional foods they wished were real. Some of the examples included the roast beast from the How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and a bunch of other foods from places I didn't recognize, but it also included Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster from Hitchhiker and a Shmoo from the Little Abner comics. People want to know what Shmoos taste like. If you were at the last Panel Jumper Live, you too know what a Shmoo is. That got me thinking about what other things from comics do we wish were things in real life? And this is basically an open. I'm not keeping it to foods. It can be a character, a city, an ideology, whatever you want to have in the real world that happens in the comics. So, Cole, you did mention that you have some foods.
Not just comics, but literature. I always wanted to sample the White Witch's Turkish Delight from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because the way he described it as being so delicious, and yet, as I read it as a kid, but now looking back on it as an adult, I mean, she used it on Edmund. Is it Edmund, the youngest of the brothers, to basically brainwash him. So it's got some type of mystical opiate abilities. So I picture this wonderful, spongy,
You just want a fantasy drug.
yeah, that tastes good on your tongue. Yes. And then the opposite is I've always wanted to try Klingon gach, which is the bloodworm delicacy. And a couple years ago, I had Korean cold chewy noodles for the first time, and I'm like, this is what dead gach tastes like, because it's not squirming around in my mouth.
What's the name of that food again?
Gach.
All right. Anybody else have anything?
That's all I had for foods.
I originally didn't have any food, but then I just remembered, what's the bread from Lord of the Rings, the lambic?
Oh yeah, that they
whatever.
can live on, for the elfin bread that they can live on
But
forever.
then they just cram a whole bunch into
Yeah.
their holes. Yeah.
Because they're
So
hobbitses.
Yeah, because they're
Yes.
hobbitses. So that would be the only food I could think of. Since I wasn't thinking of food originally, I just put down Lockjaw from the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
I would just like there to be a teleporting dog that randomly runs around the world teleporting. And then I also just thought I would also like Clifford, the big red dog, to be real.
Aw.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Where would you keep him?
wherever he wants
You
to
didn't
be.
think that through, did you?
And it,
Doesn't
well,
matter,
Clifford
there's
or
space for them.
Well, Lockjaw you can keep anywhere he wants to
Yeah.
be, but Clifford,
he's got a big dog house in the backyard.
Yeah, it's
he's got
covered.
one of those.
You know, leave it to me to throw it into a real world context. It's like, what type of real estate are you going to need for a dog that is bigger than a mastodon?
Sorry, quick aside here. There was a Twitter post from somebody who was basically bad mouthing people who don't take care of their pets, and she was basically just saying something along the lines of like, "Look, that girl got a little puppy dog, and it grew up to be the size of a house, and she dealt with it, and she took care of him.
Why can't you?
You could take care of your dog."
Amen.
I had asked my husband like what things that he would want to be real, because I went all over the map last night when I was coming up with this stuff, and he said, well, Monster Island, because my husband loves kaiju and beasts and all that stuff. And I looked at him really funny, just like, really, you want to bring a Monster Island here? He's like, look, it's self-contained. You could just fly some drones over it every once in a while, see how they're doing. It'd be fine. Of course, my husband immediately thinks
would he
monsters.
like to be a Monster Island like kaiju zoologist and be observing
Absolutely.
them?
Are you kidding
Yeah,
me?
okay.
Yeah, if there's a jungle woman in there, I'm doomed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you are.
Or, a third, that's fine. So
Kaiju-ologist.
yeah.
Kaiju
So I went all over the map. I said I would like a time stone because I never feel like I have enough time. A multiversal travel would be really fun because you could see all kinds of interesting things that way. And then I switched around and I said I would like a raccoon friend that also doubles as a hat. That's from Lumberjanes. Superhero spandex powers so that like you never have a mishap and somehow you are always like just put together very well.
So unstable molecules.
Yeah, unstable molecules, absolutely. And then it was the end of the night, and I just wanted Superman to be real because I just want him to be real.
Because we need him.
He's such a good boy.
We do.
So it's
need
like
him.
Lockjaw. We want like a good boy dog, and I need just a good boy.
You need a good boy man.
I need a good boy man.
I think I would like the library from The Dreaming.
Ooh, that would be
It's the
cool.
library where all the books that we've all written inside ourselves are shelved, but also the books that great authors, playwrights never got to write exist in this continuum. I am reading, or I'm not reading because I don't have time to read, but I'm working my way through the Gormenghast trilogy on Audible, which was this series of books by a man named Mervyn Peake, and they are written in a style like Charles Dickens. Yet they were written in the 70s, and there was actually a fourth book that Peake attempted to write, but he had early onset dementia. They eventually published the book, and I haven't gotten there yet, but I want to read the fourth book of the Gormenghast series, because it is fascinating. It's the language in it is rich and vivid and crazy as yes.
AF.
Yes, but I know that he struggled with his faculties to try to write this book before he died, and it didn't come out. And actually, Neil Gaiman wrote this really beautiful book called Signal to Noise about a screenwriter who writes his final screenplay in his death dream. So the graphic novel is you watching the screenplay, the story play out, and it's a very Bergman-esque story in his mind as he dies. And those are the books that would be in the dreaming that I would like all the time in the world to be able to read.
One last one?
Yeah.
Because you just reminded me.
Yes.
In the comic Midnight Nation, there is a shack in the middle of nowhere that is larger on the inside, and it houses every single creative thing or just invention that has never been finished or will never be finished. So it houses like cheap aluminum siding that like everybody in the world can use, but it also houses like the Fifth World Saga of Jack Kirby and novels that were only like partially conceived before somebody died and something like that. So that's a nice library
Yeah, absolutely.
of potential things.
The original cut of the Magnificent Ambersons, all the films that Orson Welles never got to
Yeah.
finish.
I guess the only thing that's coming to my mind right now is the holodeck from Star Trek.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
But now that I think about it, I kind of would like a bat utility belt that has something magically on it for whatever situation you find yourself in.
So Adam
Isn't
West's utility.
Exactly,
Yeah,
Adam
yeah.
West utility belt. You need some shark spray? Well, I got some shark spray for you. All right.
Exploding gum.
Yep. It's really hard for a fella to get rid of a bomb these days.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
All right. Well, if you, friends, have something that you wish were real, email us, perfectlyboundpodcast@gmail.com. Let's move on to book report, everybody. And Chris Casso, let's start with you. What do you want to tell us about?
So I previously reviewed a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles miniseries called Bebop and Rocksteady Destroy Everything, and it was magical, and I loved it. This is the sequel to that. It's Bebop and Rocksteady Hit the Road, and it was a weekly series for 5 issues. It just finished, and it is such a thing of beauty, and I love it because they are the perfect idiots, and I just don't know where they even begin. They have a pet dinosaur for some reason, and they meet all sorts of like random weird characters. But one of the best things is that they lose their mutation and they become humans, and they get stuck being humans for a while. And they're like, well, guess we just got to get some jobs. And so you have a montage of them like losing like 10 jobs in a row. And like one of them is like teaching kindergartners, and he gets so bored that he turns it into a fight club for kindergartners. And then another one is doing like house-to-house sales with knives, and you just get this like 3 panels of like his face darkening and then him murdering somebody with the knives, and then like eating all the food at a restaurant or farting during a yoga class. And then the plot continues after that.
The plot thickens.
And then one of my other just most favorite things is there's a part where they're flying a transdimensional spaceship and they're lost and going across the world, and they finally make it to New York, and then they're just stuck in New York traffic and they forget that they're in a spaceship that can fly. And the entire time they've been singing 99 bottles of beer on the wall, but they've never gone down from 99. So the creative team, I should have started with that. It's different artists every issue. It is written by Ben Bates and Dustin Weaver. Script and most of the art throughout the series is Dustin Weaver. And they just have the perfect concept of what 2 murderous, horrible idiots that are lovable should be. And I find that to be perfection. So I highly recommend this. You don't need to really know anything else that happened because they don't know anything that happened. And if you just like stories that follow pairs of idiots, it's good to go.
Cool. Are the Bebop and Rocksteady stories going to be collected?
The first one was, this one will be. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Neat. All right, cool. Thank you, Chris. Cole Hornaday, what do you got?
Well, I did a little project. Back in, I read, I went and dug up the Topps Comics Jack Kirby's Secret City Saga. And this was kind of an interesting epic exploration when Topps, the trading card company decided they wanted to get into comics, and they actually had some interesting properties. One of which that I really enjoyed was the Lone Ranger that Tim Truman did, and I followed that one to its end. But this is back in 1993, and sort of like, remember that in 93, all superhero comics had, superheroes had tiny heads, tiny feet, pouches, big mouths, lots of guns.
Lots of teeth.
So
many
and
teeth.
so this was like saturating the newsstands, was this image of superheroes. So Topps decided, well, we're going to go back to kind of like the original essence of superheroes, and we're going to go back to Jack Kirby. And Jack is, when did he died in 80?
No, 90.
94?
Was it okay? So he died
92
shortly
or
after they
something?
got this off the ground. So the Secret City Saga is very reminiscent of his ideas. It's got the feel of the Fourth World stories, and it was 4 interlocking, or actually it was there were 1, 2, 3, 4 cornerstone books or tentpole books. Featuring superheroes Bombast, Night Glider, and Captain Glory, and then there was a team book called the Satan Six, and then the Secret City Saga book. And these were very gentle-toned, Kirby-type stories, full of a lot of, bombast, and but these were old Kirby ideas that had actually been around for a long time, that had kind of been in his drawer. And this is in the twilight of his life, and to the credit of the folks over at Topps, they wanted to keep, maybe they were exploiting Jack a little bit, but also they wanted to show younger readers, I believe, that there's more to superheroes than pouches and giant plasma cannons. And one of the interesting things about the Secret City book itself, the core book, was that it was actually drawn by Steve Ditko. And Ditko is not an artist that I ever really cared for much, but he's consistent. His look probably has not changed much from 1970 to the day he died. And when he was a younger artist drawing Spider-Man, it's tighter, it's more vivid, but it got more relaxed. And how last week I was criticizing Frank Miller for, not simplifying but getting sloppy. Ditko's style just relaxed, and he was consistent in how he did things. But these books all have this Silver Age feel that was lost at the time, and I really enjoyed reading these books. But I'm really glad that I didn't pay more than like $0.25 a piece for them. The gimmick that Topps had with all these books was you get special edition trading cards, and you had coupons in the books to mail off and get and there was somebody at Topps is in cahoots with the Clinton administration, because you could get a special President Clinton holofoil trading card limited edition.
You could be one of 500 lucky winners.
And all of these comics came bagged, and you had special trading cards and stuff like that. I got these on eBay for pennies on the pound, and of course all the cards were gone. But here's an interesting bit of trivia. So, Chris, remember when Kirby went back over to DC and he started off his Fourth World series with Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, and DC did not like the way he drew Superman's face.
They redrew over his head.
Okay, so
What?
So President Clinton is in all of these stories, and the people at Topps didn't like the way Steve drew Clinton, so someone went back, and so then you have Bill Clinton's face that bears no stylistic resemblance to Ditko's artwork in the series. So I was like, that's just like
Weird.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah. So this was, it's not all bland. The Zero issue features, sadly, just like 7 or 8 pages of artwork by Walt Simonson that is just like perfect and beautiful, and all the lettering is by John Workman. And back in the days before we did digital lettering, this man had a very unique lettering style that was tight and dynamic and actually really exciting to read. And one of the cornerstone books, I think it's the Bombast book, is actually drawn by Dick Ayers and John Severin, who were Golden Age to Silver Age illustrators at Marvel, and drew the Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos and a lot of those kind of books back in the day. And that Bombast book is beautiful, really beautiful. So yeah, I had fun with these, and strangely enough, and then in 2011, Dynamite Comics picked up where this Secret City Saga left off, recouped all of these Kirby properties with their series that they called Kirby Genesis. I only read one issue of that, and that's frankly all I needed to read. But there's if I'm going to say anything critical about all these books, is like they aimed for the tone, but missed the joy. There's a joy and a verve and I'm going to keep using the word bombast to Kirby's work that I think only he can really do, and there are lots of people who kind of borrow that, ape that style, but there's still an energy that I'm not seeing in this, and it's too bad. But I did have fun reading them.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Cole. And finally, Nicole, what do you got for us?
So there's a new book out as of the last couple weeks that exists within the Sunstone verse. And if you've listened to the podcast long enough, you've heard me review Sunstone, which is what I lovingly refer to as a BDSM rom-com. It's a mature comic. It's two women who find each other on the internet. They have an arrangement, but they end up falling in love with each other. There was another book that came out called Swing, which was about the alternative lifestyle of swinging. And this new one is called Sugar. And both Sugar and Swing are written by Matt Hawkins and Jenny Chung. And the art is by Yishan Lee. And this one in particular is kind of trying to talk about sugaring, which is, if you think of a sugar daddy or sugar mama, the term sugaring, you have an arrangement where somebody showers you with gifts or whatever trips or whatever financial thing, and you give them a little sugar. And this one doesn't actually do that. It's following a girl who's 23 years old. She's struggling. She's going to school to be an accountant. She's working multiple jobs. Her mom's kind of in a bad situation, and her young sister's living with her mom, and so she's trying to work enough to pay her tuition and to help her mom out. And meanwhile, she's a little bit lonely, and she has this, she's watching The Notebook and being like, this is unrealistic or something like that. But gosh, I wish it was real. And she runs across this guy who's a divorcee, and he's struggling because his wife was a really nasty person to him, but he's still in love with her. And the girl, her name's Julia and his name's John. It's kind of hard to remember. They decide to make some kind of arrangement like sugaring, but they clearly like each other. So it's not really a real streamlined arrangement. And it just turns out to be just a real, romance comic overall of them liking each other, having this relationship, dealing with life circumstances. Him and his ex-wife, he's got this kind of what's the word, schmucky kind of business partner, who is a bit of a dirtbag, but a lovable dirtbag. I don't know.
Foggy Nelson.
He's no,
He's not a dirtbag.
No.
No,
this guy is like a James Spader. You know what I mean? In which John Hughes movie, whichever John Hughes movie.
Sex Lies? No.
No, he's 16 Candles or something like that.
I'm not helping at all right now. I'm going to be quiet.
That's okay. It doesn't matter. So there's a point in the back where Matt has been talking about his experience writing these books, and in Sugar, he said that he had come up with a more salacious version of the story written in outline, but he brought it back a bit to make it more accessible. And what I think he actually did was made it more bland, because the thing about Sunstone and Swing is it's bringing these alternative lifestyles into view, and it's putting it in the context of a slice of life romance comic, which is really engaging and sweet and endearing and fun. I really enjoyed Swing. And this one is kind of your typical heteronormative sort of relationship with a side of this maybe deal. So, I mean, I read it all in one sitting and I enjoyed it. But as far as the strength of the Sunstone verse, this one might be the weakest one. And also, something that threw me off was there's snippets where people are watching TV and they're watching aspects of Sunstone. As Sunstone is a TV show. like the girls are on a reality show, which just threw me off. Like it was like, hey, look, it's a cute cameo, but it didn't work because in the other ways that they're all tied together is because people in this verse are playing an MMORPG. There's a comic book by Linda Stepan's wife, who does Sunstone. She does a series called Bloodstain, Stone Stains, whatever. And the character in there plays an MMORPG. A guy in Swing plays on the team, and Allie in Sunstone plays on that. So they were just like, we need to tie it in somehow, and they just went burp, and this is a little forced. Like I said, I still enjoyed it. If you like the Sunstone series and the verse, you could still pick it up. I think Matt's doing a pretty decent job. This one was a little bit on the weaker side for me. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Nicole. Well, that is Book Report, and that is our show. Coming up is quiz time. But before we go, I want to tell you that the Perfect Bound podcast is brought to you by The Paddle Jumper. See everything Cole Hornaday and I do at thepaddlejumper.com, as well as Comic Extension here at 319 Northeast 45th Street in beautiful downtown Wallingford, or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at comicextension.com. Subscribe to the show on iTunes or however you get your podcasts at perfectboundpodcast.com. Send us an email, perfectboundpodcast@gmail.com. And now, friends, get your quiz hats on. It's quiz time. This week, our question come to us from Mr. Chris Cassell. Lay it on us, Chris.
So I don't have a clever name for this one, but that fits because it's called Pairs of Idiots That I Love. So, starting, these two characters are the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of the Star Wars universe, a pair of minor characters who deliberately or accidentally influence the events seen in the first and second trilogies. Their meddling also explains some of the inconsistencies in illogical events of the franchise. They've been Padawans, Rebel Scum, and Stormtroopers. Who are they?
Tag and Bink or Blink?
Tag and Bink.
Bink.
Created by Kevin Rubio and Lucas Morangang in 2001. It's worth noting that in October 2017, Kevin Rubio supported the fan theory stating that the two stormtroopers who back up to avoid the wrath of Kylo Ren when he throws a hissy fit are an elderly Tag and Bink. And in January 2018, he stated that they're doing a new series connected to the current trilogy titled Tag and Bink Awaken. He then announced the second chapter, The Second and Third Last Jedi, and the final chapter, Tag and Bink Got Milk. I don't think any of those are going to be real.
Oh.
Next question. These two friends are lauded by their employer as having the rare blend of expendable and invulnerable that makes them the perfect henchmen. This pair of out-of-shape nerds have survived using a blend of luck, experience, and metatextual awareness of all the tropes that could kill them, along with a mulleted psycho hero. Who are they?
Is it the henchmen from the Venture Brothers?
Yeah.
24.
Yeah.
And
26?
Subtract 3.
21?
21. 24 and 21.
Henchman 21
do math.
and 24. One of them is named Gary.
No spoilers!
Later dubbed Stinky and Smelly in subsequent novels, these representatives of the race also known as the Hairy Men are soldiers who refer to each other only as comrade. The two are rather incompetent, and one of them often suggests cooking the main protagonist in a quiche.
The rat creatures, but I don't remember their names.
No, it's not the names, but what are they usually called?
Stupid rat creatures.
Stupid rat creatures. These two diminutive yet violent robot brothers work for their unchrasmatic boss, both as spies and tiny yet devastating muscle. When not using their powers to cause earthquakes or sonic attacks, they might be attempting to hit it big in popular Earth culture by creating action movies for humans under their production company named Tape Brothers. Who are they?
Is this from the Transformers line?
Transformers.
I don't know the guys, though.
Little tape guys. Okay. Rumble and Frenzy.
Rumble.
The movie they made was basically a Michael Bay film called Dark Invasion, where the tagline is, "Today's the day we stop tomorrow from dying." Kind of perfect.
Pretty good, right?
So Michael Bay.
Last question. This odd pair of henchmen came from completely different video game properties that work for the villainous Mother Brain, also a different property, in her attempts to defeat Captain N, the Game Master. One is a monstrous pear-shaped heavyweight beast who is short on brains and big on muscle from the game Punch-Out, and the other one is a one-eyed human-sized eggplant from the game Kid Icarus. Who are these two?
Played Kid Icarus when I was a kid. I don't remember.
King Hippo and the Eggplant Wizard.
Flint Wizard.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, Chris. And thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.